Welcome to the Jimmy Daytona Show. Tonight, I have my friend Yvonne Bailey, who was a state rep in New Hampshire, who moved out to California, and is now running her a satire site known as Beep Satire. And she's had a bunch of funny travels and cool adventures and great stories to tell over the years. And I look forward to having her share her experiences with you, my listeners. Thank you so much, Yvonne.
Thank you for having me. It's good to catch up with you. It's been a bit.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, thanks. Always love reading of your adventures. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, no problem.
And I guess I'll run it chronologically, more or less.
Sure.
I know you started off as a basketball player at Phillips Exeter. How was that school, and how was playing basketball during that time?
Yeah, so when I'm from Northwood, New Hampshire originally, which is a small town east of Concord, New Hampshire, and I went to Co-Brown for the beginning of high school. Just wasn't really my vibe. And was fortunate enough to go to Phillips Exeter for my last 2 years, which is pretty cool. They do this really great program, which is basically it's probably different now. I bet the threshold is probably higher, but basically they had this program that if you were able to get into the school, which it's pretty hard to get into, and your family makes less than, I think at the time it was $75,000 a year, everything was completely free. So free room and board, free travel, free equipment, they gave me a computer, the school obviously totally changed my life. And I was playing basketball there. And the prep school league is a little bit different than the regular high school league. It's usually people who were going to play Division I or Division II in college. I didn't end up doing that because I dropped out of college, but it was great. A lot of great opportunities. And that's how I kind of got involved in politics. My senior year of high school, they had this program that basically you could intern in Washington, D.C. for a senator or congresswoman or a congressman for the last semester of your senior year. And so I ended up doing that, intern for Kelly Ayotte, and I caught the political bug.
Yeah. How was your experience with Senator Ayotte?
I think she's great. I mean, that's really what got me into politics. I kind of, loved the hustle and bustle of Congress, which, we can, now that I'm older, I have opinions, but I don't know. It was fun and exciting. And it was during, Obama's presidency. So it was definitely a completely different world. And I think she's great. I don't agree with her on everything, but I think she's one of the, I think she's a genuinely good person who really cares about the people who worked for her. I know when I ran for office, she was incredibly generous to me. And I mean, I owe her a lot. She's great.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I've met her a few times. I think she's a really sweet person. I thought her 2016 campaign, though, was political malpractice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of things that I came across. I was like, wait, what are you doing, Kelly?
Well, she was kind of in the impossible position. And I mean, I get it. It wasn't it's easy to say things now oh, she should have supported Trump, or she should have done this, or she should have done that. But at that point, no one really knew what was going to happen. Nobody thought that he was, I mean, some people thought he was going to win, but the vast majority of people did not think that he was going to win. And so she's put kind of in this awful position, which is you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. And I think the biggest mistake that she made, unfortunately, was you got to pick a side. And when you're kind of doing that dance, well, maybe I might support Pence, or I might vote for Trump, or I don't think he's a role model, but I'm still going to vote for him. That's when you really get screwed, because nobody knows what side you're on. And then you end up pissing everybody off, but that's probably the result of bad advice,
Yeah. How did you come to acquire your conservative and libertarian beliefs?
I think that came from just me as a young age. I'm very like anti-authoritarian. I don't like people telling me what to do. I was never like a troublemaker, but I always was like, I don't believe what you're saying. And if you're going to tell me to do something, you better give me a reason why it needs to be done. So I was always kind of like very like anti-authoritarian as a child, and kind of like not a troublemaker, but like class clown, like always like making jokes and like, and so I think that that's probably the root of where that came from. And then like, I remember, I mean, it's like this now. I mean, this was in 2008 when Obama first got elected. I was in, how old was I? I was probably almost in high school. And you had this like cult mentality of like teachers and kids where it's like Obamacare, universal health care, Obama is like the best person ever. And if you like dissent at all, even back then, like there was this mob mentality that was like just very overwhelming. And so if you posed any challenges to that ideology, like people came after you. And usually, I try and be critical of if there's a herd mentality, I try and be critical of that if at all possible.
Wow, neat. And you mentioned, you had a bit of a funny streak. I know you've become a big fan of comedy, and you've done some comedy as well. Who are some of your favorite comedians, and why do you like them?
I would say right now my favorite comedian is Tim Dillon. I think that he is the funniest guy like online right now. He just like is able to point out he's gonna say he's saying what nobody wants to say, right? I like him. I like Whitney Cummings too. I've always thought Whitney Cummings was funny. She's a little bit like less political. Tim Dillon is very political. I would say that those guys are probably my favorites.
Yeah, I think my favorites are Dave Chappelle and Joe Rogan.
Oh
I've
yeah,
seen
of
Chappelle
course.
twice.
Yeah.
I was down in Providence going to a water fire, and then I parked my car near the Providence Performing Arts Center, and I see the Dave Chappelle on the marquee. I'm like, change your plans.
Yeah. No, he's a legend. And Rogan's good too. I'm more of like into Rogan's like podcasting than I am into his comedy. And it's funny because it's like vice versa with Tim. Actually, no, it's the same with Tim Dillon. Like I'm more like interested in like Tim Dillon's podcast than I saw him live, and he was funny, but like he's like not like a legend yet, but his like podcast is like it's literally an hour of basically like stand up, but a podcast, and it's good.
Yeah, inspirations for me
Yeah, it's interesting.
as I start my podcasting career. How'd you get into comedy to begin with?
Sorry, my cat is going absolutely insane. She's like a mentalist. I actually like have always been interested in comedy. Like I was originally going to go to school for screenwriting, and like have had that bug since before I was even political. And sorry, I just have a cat.
Bring her
like,
on the air.
The walls. I was actually like into comedy before I was political. I originally wanted to go to school for it. And like when I was in high school, like I did a lot of like improv and stuff like that. But then like I loved politics too. And I always thought that those things were not compatible. Like if you're in politics, like you're naturally like holding things back, right? That's kind of like part of being like in politics and a politician is you're always kind of like, oh, well, what is this? We don't want to offend anybody and we don't want to do this. And then obviously Trump changed that, thank God. I remember like the old way of thinking used to be like everything was so manicured and so like finely combed. And I think that we're kind of in comedy and also in like politics, we're in a completely new generation that is like, I don't want your manicured statements. I don't want, this thing that your press secretary wrote. Like, I want to know what you think about this, and I want your unfiltered opinion on things.
Wow. I just, definitely things changed. I just remember when Donald Trump went down the escalator, that world famous escalator ride of his.
Yeah.
Like his speech was surreal. And, if things were normal back in 2016, he would have been laughed out of the early stages of the Republican primary.
Totally.
and he ended up becoming our president.
Totally.
Yeah. Now you had a year at Mount Holyoke. What was that like, and what kind of crazy stuff did you do there, and what made you ultimately
Yeah.
drop out?
Well, I met one of my best friends there, Cassie Dillon, so it's not a complete loss. I was there, and I don't know, like I like knew that I had committed to that school before I knew that I wanted to work in politics because of the basketball team, and like I had been recruited. So it was kind of this like weird thing where I had agreed to go, but then like I was like, I don't really want to go. I want to work in politics, but I'm supposed to be on this basketball team and this college. Like obviously, like working for Kelly made me more conservative. And I'm like, I don't want to go to the school. This is really liberal. Like, and so it was like this whole dance. And then I ended up sorry, I'm trying to calm her down. She's got so much freaking energy.
Hi, Twig. What a sweetie.
She's very sweet, but she is absolutely insane.
How old is she?
3 months old.
Wow. Where'd you come across her?
I got her from the ASPCA.
Oh, how sweet. Adopt, don't shop.
Exactly. She's got more energy than anyone I've ever met in my entire life.
Wow, how sweet.
Yeah. So yeah, I was at Mount Holyoke, and I kind of had started doing stuff for the Leadership Institute and campus reform, which was kind of a godsend to me in a way, because it was like, if you like go through traditional thinking, you're in a liberal environment, you're like, well, I should really shut up and not do anything because I might get killed. And campus reform and the Leadership Institute is like, actually, like you can like report on this like crazy stuff that's happening, and like we'll train you like how to go on TV and like how to like message yourself and how to like be a journalist. And so I started doing that and kind of leaning into the fact that I was, I'm not even that conservative. I'm like a rational thinker, right? Like these are like crazy, like vehemently liberal people, right? Who this was at the beginning of like the BLM movement and stuff like that, where it's like we, we're like laying down the street, we're closing. It was just all of this madness, right? And so I started reporting on it, and and I ended up not returning because I was like, I want to work in politics. So
Yeah, so you go back to Northwood, you're 19 years old, and you run for the state house. I've heard some really surreal stories about that experience. Tell me what that whole candidacy was like, and what your time in the state house is like.
Totally. So it was kind of funny. Like I went to speak at like the Northwood GOP meeting because the chairman at the time had gotten wind of like some of the journalism that I was doing, and I was helping Marilinda Garcia at the time. And they're like sitting there and they're like talking about, we got the special election and nobody wants to run and we need somebody to run. And it was like this big hullabaloo. And I was like, well, I'm from here. I work really hard. Like, I think that I would do a good job. And and so I was like, kind of like, filling out the water. And then John Reagan, who was still the senator for that district at the time, was like, do it. And so I ended up doing it. And I was in the legislature for 3 years, and it was interesting. I learned a lot. Learned a lot about politics. I learned a lot about people, learned a lot about, my beef. I could go on and on about the legislature, but, it's a very hard place to be, in that you are one of 400, right? And you're working like 20 to 30 hours a week for free.
$100 a year.
Yeah. I think it's very hard to make an impact there. And that's kind of the reason why, like, I'm not sure that I would ever run for that kind of seat ever again, because, there's something to be said, she's back, about activism at the community level, I do think in New Hampshire, it's incredibly hard. And I'll probably get shit for this, but people are like, oh, well, it's the largest legislature in the world. Isn't that lovely? Well, it's really hard to get stuff done. It's not impossible, but it's hard to get stuff done. But on one hand, that's kind of the beauty of a big government is, or not a big government per se, but a large legislative body, in that, sometimes you don't want people to get stuff done. Because the bad guys are in charge. So it's kind of a blessing and a curse. But I was there for 3 years. I was the vice chair of election law, which was really fun. And it was during a crazy time. And I think we got a lot done on that committee. And, I'm proud of the work that I did there. So, yeah.
I volunteer as tribute.
Yeah.
I had heard about the time where you quote unquote dropped out right before the race, and that you talked to the Communist Monitor.
Oh, those are two.
Tell me those stories.
So I'll do the Communist Monitor, the first one. It was like a very innocent mistake. And what had happened was I did an interview with one of the reporters at the Concord Monitor, and it went really, really, really well. I think it went okay. I can't remember. And I was going to call my friend afterwards to tell her that the interview had gone well. And everybody that's conservative refers to it as the Communist Monitor, right? And so I had called her and I was like, hey, I just got off the phone with the Communist Monitor. I think it went really well. And I accidentally called back the reporter. I hit the wrong button on my phone, and he's like, this is Nick from the Communist Monitor. And they printed it. It was Yvonne Bailey, who refers to this paper as the Communist Monitor. And most people thought it was funny because most people agreed with me. And then the other one was, the woman that I ran against was fine. She's not my cup of tea, but she had the seat probably 2 or 3 times before that. And it was a special election. So there was a lot of attention focused on this race. And she claims that she never financially hired him. But typically what happens is, the Democrat Party hires these people to be their aide or their activist to help them with their race. So she hires this guy named Carl Gibson, who has a history of working in the Occupy Wall Street movement and some of these very radical left-wing media outlets. And so he was kind of low-key stalking me a little bit. And I did an event with Rick Perry, and he tried to get in my face with the camera, and he was going to all my events and trying to instigate me and get me to do something, or swat away the camera, who knows. And that was really all I had interacted with him. And then it's 3 days before the election, and I'm out in the middle of nowhere in the woods knocking on doors, and I get a call from Todd Chewing at the NHGOP, who says, did you drop out of the race? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm literally knocking doors in the middle of nowhere right now. And he's like, somebody just tweeted that you dropped out of the race. And I'm like, no, I didn't. I definitely did not. And it turns out that this guy had written a fake press release in my name and sent it to every media outlet in New Hampshire. He wasn't super smart because he typed it up in Word. This is when everybody used Microsoft Word. He typed it up in Microsoft Word, and it has basically you can go into Word and see where the document originated from. And it had his freaking name in the document. And so of course he's getting all this heat. It comes out and he says, oh, I was drunk and I did it as a joke. And I'm like, no, you don't make a fake email that looks just like mine. And whatever. Anyway, he ended up getting, I believe, prosecuted for voter suppression, and got a slap on the wrist. But yeah.
Wow. And your candidacy was during a time of presidential primary seasons.
Yes.
Which presidential candidates did you meet? Which ones helped you out most? And what was your experience, talking to these people one-on-one?
Yeah, totally. gosh, it was so long ago. I did an event with Rick Perry, which is awesome. I really liked Rick Perry. Obviously, he didn't make it very far, but I thought he was a great guy, and he was very helpful to me. Carly Fiorina was very helpful to me as well. I ended up working on her campaign. I mean, I think I was just talking to my friend about this. I still think Carly was a great candidate. Unfortunately, she kind of went off the rails a little bit and ended up endorsing Biden, but I do think that she was a good candidate and she was very qualified, and I would much rather have her than Joe Biden right now. Yeah, those are probably the two that I remember the most. You end up meeting all of them, right?
Yeah.
So
I remember you met the bad orange man himself.
yeah, I've met Trump too. I met him at what was it? The first in the nation little conference that they had there when they had all the presidential primary candidates come in. I don't know if you remember that. It was very cool. The NHGOP did it. And basically they had kind of like a cattle call of all of the Republican candidates, like at the very beginning when there were like 20 or 25 of them. And he was there, and he didn't, at the time he had next to no momentum, right? Like he was a complete, like, not a nobody, obviously, but like he had no momentum. It was at the very, very, very beginning, and it was crazy.
Yeah, between the escalator ride and only Rosie O'Donnell.
Yeah, I know.
And the rest is history.
Yep.
So you spent a few years in the state house. So what made you move on from it and move on from New Hampshire?
Yeah, I was offered a job in San Diego in like the field that I really wanted to get in, and it was a great offer, and I couldn't refuse it. And I'm glad that I did it to this day. I mean, I was sad, obviously. I grew up in New Hampshire and I have a lot of great friends there, and I love being in the legislature and serving my community, but sometimes you gotta I mean, I was a college dropout. That was working my ass off. So I had to take that opportunity, and I'm glad I did, and I learned a lot. And had I not, I wouldn't have my own business today, and I wouldn't have the pretty sick life that I built for myself. So I'm pretty grateful that I did it.
What did you do in that endeavor?
I was basically working on Republican and California like ballot initiatives.
Oh wow, neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I read that you had moved to New York to work with Project Veritas, which is becoming in the news more and more by the day with a lot of their exposés.
Yeah.
What kind of stuff did you do for them?
Yeah, so I was on their communications team at Project Veritas, which was pretty awesome. I worked for them for about 2 years, very closely with James. And that was the time when we were doing a lot of big tech investigations into Pinterest and Google and Facebook. And it was really an incredible time to be there. I learned a lot from James. I think that, probably if you get down to brass tacks, James and I disagree on a lot of things, but he is one of the most ideological people working in politics today. He is a great person to work for, and I learned so much from him about the way that the media works and about positioning yourself and stories, and he's kind of like a freak genius, and I say this in like a very loving way. He's a total madman. He goes, it's crazy. He's 5 a.m. to 2 a.m. every single day. He has his eye on the ball. He knows what he wants. And he's been able to create a really successful organization around it. And I mean, James, he's basically, he's not a college dropout, but he's somebody who started this organization when he was 24 years old, who, was put down by establishment Republicans and told that oh, you need to wait and you're too young to start your own thing, and you need to fall in line and work at a think tank for 10 years, and then maybe you can write a book after you do 20 years at a think tank and write white papers all day. And he's no, screw that, that's not my jam. I'm going to start my own thing. And that was back in the days of Andrew Breitbart, who's another person who I fundamentally disagree with on a lot of things, but I respect the fact that that guy is also a genius. and understood the media like nobody else. And I'm kind of, it's good for people on the right that, the left kind of ostracizes these people and criticizes them and can't learn from them, because they're very, very, very intelligent people who understand how to create a movement around a story. I mean, like James O'Keefe got Acorn defunded by Obama, right? Like that is like Congress under Obama defunded Acorn off of like a few videos that he did, right? That's a huge thing. And it just shows you the power of media, really.
Well, where did you clash with James and with Andrew? Is it more style? Is it more substance? What do
No,
you disagree with those things?
I like style. I mean, my favorite like media outlets are like the Daily Mail and TMZ, right? Like totally over the top, totally like in your face, but it's true. And I think probably like I like, Andrew and James are very socially conservative people, and that's just not what I am. So, but in terms of like style and like the way that they go about things, like I think that they are very talented.
Wow, that's wonderful. Now, you had mentioned Daily Mail and TMZ. I saw a few of your videos where you give an elegy to TMZ and to reality TV.
Yeah.
Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, totally. I think for TMZ, the reason that I brought that up is because it was during all of these celebrity deaths, right? So Betty White passed away and Bob Saget passed away, and I think somebody else was right before that. And it always ends up trending, or it happened with Kobe too, right? It always ends up trending. Oh, TMZ, can this be real? Can this be real? It's TMZ. I don't know if I can trust TMZ. And it's like, TMZ is actually one of the more reliable news outlets out there. I mean, I've looked pretty extensively. They have very few, you have people like CNN who are being sued by like an 18-year-old kid for defamation, right? Like that's who you shouldn't be trusting. TMZ actually does their due diligence. They have a very extensive team of tipsters in LA who know that, if they give TMZ the story, they're going to get paid good money. Which, you can debate the ethics of that all day. I don't think that there's anything wrong with it. But, so basically my point was that TMZ is one of the more reliable news outlets out there. And sorry, she's back. And
Hi,
you
Twig.
can, you might not like their style. And you might think that they're over the top and brash and get in people's faces, but they're usually right. And in terms of reality TV, my point more on that is like, so many kids these days are taught to demonize capitalism. You have, massively successful shows like Girls, which basically teaches, young women that it's okay to be, basically losers, and it's cool to be a loser, and it's cool to like not make money. And oh, woe is me, I'm a writer in New York, I only make 20 grand a year and I can't pay my bills and I have to ask my parents to fund my lifestyle. Like that's not cool. That is not something that we should be like asking girls to strive to. Whereas you have reality TV on the other hand, which is like widely watched by, a variety of people. You have shows like Selling Sunset, which have been really successful, which is, like very accomplished real estate agents who are able to like live like the glitz and glamour lifestyle. Like that's more the line that we should be going. Like if you work hard, you'll be able to afford like a great lifestyle versus, everything should be handed to you.
Any other elegies in the works?
I've been so freaking swamped in traveling lately. I don't have I think I do have one that I'm working on that's a little controversial, but it's not necessarily, it's probably going to be my next video, but it's about Truth Social.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you have any observations about Truth Social and some of the
Yeah, I
other
think it's a
alternative conservative
scam.
sites? Wow.
I think it's a scam, and I think that, I mean, I would love to be proven wrong, right? I'm not saying this from a place where it's like I don't like Trump, like,
Orange
that's just
man
not,
bad.
huh?
Orange man bad.
Right. That's not the place that I'm coming from. I'm coming from the perspective of someone who works with a lot of, donors in the center right movement who genuinely want to see an alternative to these big tech sites that works and is viable. And sorry,
Yo, Twig.
I'm so worried that she's going to attack the sick cat. She's just being crazy. Um, but the donors that actually want to see this problem solved and, have put a lot of faith and trust into Trump to solve this issue. And I just don't see it getting solved. What I more lean towards is the idea that this is a nice way for conservatives and Republicans to collect the data on people that Twitter and Facebook and Google have, right? I mean, we don't have anything like that. And so that's more the lines of what I think it's going to be. I don't think it's about preserving free speech and yada, yada, yada. I mean, they came out and said that we're going to be a family friendly app, which is a nice way of saying we're going to censor you. So I'm happy to be proven wrong. We did like kind of like a funny like post on this on Beep that was like, Trump supporter dies, like waiting to be accepted to True Social or something. And you can just look at the comments of people who are so disappointed. They're like, I'm number 255,000 on the wait list. I haven't moved this entire time. Like, is this thing going to work? And I mean, I'm sure that they will have to open it up to everybody at some point. But if you look at like sites like Getter, right? Like everybody's throwing their name into the Getter ring. Getter, you go on, it's mostly bots and, foreign bots at that. It's a long way to come. I think that this big tech, grift is a big one for conservatives. And I do think that people should be wary. I regret signing up for Getter because I don't have faith in conservatives, no offense, for protecting my private information from foreign countries, right? I mean, these sites are going to be targeted by hackers and by people. I mean, they already had a Getter data dump, right? I don't trust these sites to keep my information safe, to be honest.
Wow. Yeah, I know there's some
That's
other
just
sites like MeWe, Minds, Gab. Do you have any observations in those sites or any others?
I think structurally speaking, Gab is the best structurally. I do not agree with the founder, who I think is very open about the fact that he is homophobic and anti-Semitic. He's very open about that. I think it's unfortunate that his platform is structurally the best alternative. I mean, it works. That's really what the barometer is the platform works. Parler has been reduced to a glorified newsletter, right? I mean, it's embarrassing, right? You have people who are giving these companies money who can't do the basics, which is have a working product, keep my information safe, and stay on the App Store, right? It's not like we're asking for the next big thing. We're asking for basically an equivalent of what other people already have. And the reality is I don't think that it's going to happen. I mean, Facebook and Twitter and Google at this point are so big. I don't see conservatives catching up anytime soon.
Wow. Yeah. Tell me about your time in California. You seem to have a love-hate relationship with the place.
It's definitely a love-hate relationship. I have been pretty much up and down the coast of California quite a bit. Lived in San Diego for a bit, lived in Orange County, and I lived in LA. I do love California. It has a lot of problems. And those problems are only getting worse. Before COVID, it really was a different state. You didn't see this absolute hive mind of idiots, and that's what it is, right? This isn't like people it used to be like, oh yeah, California's blue, you know, ha 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 ha, no big deal. Like I'm the only conservative I know, all my friends are liberal. And that was really it, right? That was basically the end of the conversation. And then you have COVID come in and all of these mandates where it's like every single part of your life is a fucking battle, right? Do you want to go to the grocery store? Do you want to go to a retail store? Do you wear a mask, right? Am I going to even see my friends at all because they're so COVID crazy? Like it, COVID has affected every single part of your life. And you have somebody like a Gavin Newsom who is just completely off the rails and wants to do whatever the norm is. He wants to do 10 times worse in the, you know, more liberal direction. We're just lifting the mask mandate in California. You know what I mean? Like it's been awful. And you have cities like LA. I do think that LA is an awesome city. You know, yes, there's a homeless problem, but you know, you can't, it's kind of like a New York, right? You just can't beat the excitement. You can't beat what it has to offer, the food, the culture. It's just, you know, it's an iconic American city. But the city council is insane. The mayor is insane. I mean, these are people who have had, we have vaccine passports for basically everything, you know? And it's not even just COVID, right? I mean, this is the city that in the middle of COVID was almost burned down due to BLM riots, right? And the mayor is so, I mean, the mayor is a wimpy little white guy who is so out of touch with the rest of the city. Like I'll never forget, like during the riots, because it wasn't quite by my house, but I could hear like shit going down. And I was just watching like Fox, like the local Fox station. And this guy does a press conference and they're all mad at him for, I forget what it was. They had to do something with the police, right? They're pissed at this guy. And so the BLM people are actually like rioting outside his house. He's doing a press conference and you can hear the rioting in the background. And he like is like, I like want to like be peaceful. Like these should be peaceful demonstrations. And the guy starts singing like the Black Negro anthem in the middle of his press conference, this dorky little white guy. Like, this is why people don't like you, you know, because you're so out of touch with like the rest of the world, right? And this is also the guy that goes to the Super Bowl and doesn't wear his mask.
He's holding his breath.
Twice, right? The first time wasn't enough when he went to the whatever's before the Super Bowl. I don't know anything about football.
Yeah, NFC Championship game between the Rams and the Niners.
Yep. And then at the Super Bowl, he does the same thing. And it's funny, my buddy Trevor was the one who actually got the picture of him doing it. And he's like a comedian. He's like not overtly political, but like obviously COVID affected everyone and it made a lot of people political. And he tweets out this picture and I'm like, Trevor, that can't be fucking real. And he's like, yeah, the guy that the owns the bar that I work at is there with him now. And it just blew up. It was crazy. So it's definitely a love-hate relationship. I have like a great group of friends and a great network there. So it's difficult. I will probably leave at some point in the near future. It's just, you know, trying to figure out where that's to. I can't do the cold anymore. So it's not going to be New Hampshire, even though, you know, the libertarian trolls like to troll me all the time and say, you don't care about liberty if you don't live in New Hampshire. And it's like, no, actually I do. I lived there for 22 years of my life and I shoveled a lot of fucking snow and I'm not doing it again.
Yeah. I mean, that mayor, he's holding his breath, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Oh,
these people don't even bother leading by example. They don't even give the appearance of it.
Right.
I know you were pretty vocal about the lockdowns early on, both in California and New Hampshire. What made you like wise up to what was going on earlier than a lot of people? No joke, day one of the lockdown, I was like, oh my gosh, this is literally the end of the world. Not the end of the world, but like, I was like, this is it. And the way that kind of the sequence of events is, I believe San Francisco was the first city to do it in America. Los Angeles was the second city in America. And then Trump had said, we're looking at shutting down New York City
but that's basically going to be it. So it seemed like this was a city by city approach. And I was like, fuck this. I'm getting out of LA. I'm not doing this. No way. Hell no. And then Trump came along, and this was obviously quite into this debacle. Trump came along and said, we're just going to do 2 weeks, right?
15
And
days to
the
stop the
minute,
spread.
right. The minute that happened, that was a fundamental change for the Western world for the bad. That was the worst thing that man ever could have done. And I'm not a never Trumper. I'm not, a big pro Trumper, but I do think you have to be very like specific of that was a fundamental moment in the Western world where we said, okay, we can just shut down the economy. And the thing that was so frustrating to me was I was sitting there and I'm like, I'm someone who's given my life to the conservative and liberty movement. I'm like, this isn't going to fly. Like people like Ted Cruz will say something or Rand Paul will say something, and this is not going to happen. And then all of a sudden you see Ted Cruz and Rand Paul in the more conservative wing of the right saying, okay, yeah, we're just going to do the 2 weeks. And it's like, the minute you give the government an inch, they're going to take 25 miles, right? If they're being nice. And, I hate to say I was right, but here we are 2 years later, and it was, for me, it was just like, as Republicans, and I know some people disagree with me on this, as Republicans or conservatives, and before COVID, I considered myself a Republican, but after COVID, I was like, this is not for me. Because there was no one with the courage to stand up to what was happening. And all the action I saw was on the libertarian side. And I'm like, you know what? This is a little bit more of a better fit for me. And you had, and I got in plenty of trouble for this, and I'll stand by my words to this day. You have people like Chris Sununu who pretends to be, the Liberty governor, and we're all about freedom here in New Hampshire. And this guy closed down the government. It was bullying people for months, right? I mean, it's crazy. And I understand, the Sununu thing where, caught between a rock and a hard place. But, this was a critical moment in world history where we needed people with balls to step up and to say, no, enough is enough. And, not enough people did that until a year later,
Wow. Yeah, you said you're going to be moving out of LA. I've read about some of your, vacations / reconnaissance missions.
Yes.
What are you liking? What are some of the cities you're thinking of moving to, and what do you like and dislike about each city?
Yeah, I have done I've done a good amount of traveling and looking at other cities. Things that are important to me are probably not as important to other people, but I like to have I like to be close to an airport. I like to be in an exciting city. I like things to be going on. I like there to be culture and diversity and of like people and political opinions. I kind of like being in a liberal city because it, keeps you on your toes a little bit more and you have to fight for things, I like being in a purple city too. I've been to places that I liked a lot. I really like Dallas. I thought Dallas was really nice. It's very clean. It's a very much a proper like American city, right? Like there's a lot of American spirit there. Like people are, but it's also like people are like, oh, Dallas is blue. It's like, it's not blue. It's when you're in a blue city in a red state, you're basically in a purple city,
Right.
And the only reason that these like liberals get riled up in Texas is because of abortion stuff, right? That's what really, and I liked Austin. I just think Austin has a lot of problems, and it seems kind of like it's going to be like a little bit of a tech hub. And then, once that bubble bursts and Austin, it becomes San Francisco, there's really no reason to go to Austin anymore. I don't know. I didn't think Austin was really for me. I didn't really think Dallas was really for me. Right now I'm probably leaning towards Miami. I do like Miami. I think it's fun. And it's always, it's kind of like if you're buying property and you can like buy something in Miami, like it's always going to be valuable, you know what I mean? Unless there's like a natural disaster, which is possible.
Can't be ruled out.
Whereas like, huh?
Can't be ruled out.
Right. Whereas like Austin kind of seems like a trend. I like Scottsdale and like Northern Phoenix too. I think that those are pretty great, but the heat is just
In
crazy,
the
you
summer,
know?
forget it.
Yeah,
You got to go to Flagstaff for the summer.
right.
I know I visited Arizona in 16. It was one of the best vacations I took. I did a Patriots themed road trip where I saw the Patriots play the Cardinals week 1.
Yep.
One of my best friends lives in Phoenix, and then a few of my other New England friends came out, and then we built a big vacation around it. I saw Taliesin West, the Frank Lloyd Wright House.
Yep.
Went to U of A, went to Saguaro National Monument. I ended up eating a lot of really good restaurants like TP. I had In-N-Out Burger, Sweet Republic ice cream, one of the best of all time. And then I capped the trip off Sedona and the Grand Canyon. I absolutely loved it. What were some of your favorite sites in Arizona and Florida?
I love Arizona a lot, and I like the hiking, like when it's cool. It's like, from my understanding, it's only bad like May through, it's like basically our like New Hampshire winter is like Phoenix summer, right? Where it's like it sucks, but it's like you get over it because in the winter it's gorgeous. I love like northern Scottsdale and like all of like the hiking and like just beautiful scenery and like nice restaurants and just like it's very chill. I like Queen Creek too, which is like kind of like it feels like a western town, but it's like more modern, if that makes sense. It's very nice. And then in Florida, I mean, I like the beaches. I like Wynwood in Miami. I think Wynwood's really fun. The only hesitancy for Miami is like it's just a lot, but it's like LA is a lot, you know.
Yeah, one of my other friends moved down there for crypto endeavors. She absolutely loves it. And you know, yeah, I'm glad you had a good time down there recently. It's always fun to read of your adventures. Back to Arizona, I know you've spoken favorably of Kirsten Sinema, and she's getting a lot of static from the left these days. So
Yeah.
what's your take on her?
I think anytime you break, and that's my whole, I mean, I have a lot of, gripes about politics, but the left and the right is like this too. There's just a little bit more diversity on the right. I mean, you've got somebody like a Mitch McConnell all the way to a Ted Cruz, whereas the left just doesn't have that anymore. It's basically like a hive mind. And if you're willing to step outside of the hive mind, which is, Sinema and Manchin for the most part, you're going to be ridiculed and you're going to be ostracized. And I mean, my bigger issues like with the Sinema stuff is just how like awful they've been to this person who really hasn't done anything bad, right? I mean, she's just doing what she thinks is right. She's in a very, very purple state where she could, if she were to go like with Democrats the whole time, she could be easily like kicked out by a Republican or, not reelected. So there's like the ideological piece to it, and then also the practical piece that's like she represents a purple state, so she should be more moderate. But like the craziness is like, in my opinion, the craziness is honestly like the left pretends to be like, oh, well, Republicans are so mean to women and they don't tolerate dissenting views. It's like, actually the left is 10 times worse. I mean, this is like, Gawker published her freaking social security number. Like these people are mentally ill. Like that's not okay.
Yeah, these people chasing her in the girls' room, harassing her when she's officiating a wedding.
Well, there's also though a difference between activists and journalists. A journalist published her social security number. It's like, come on.
No wonder Hulk Hogan put him out of business.
Yeah.
Forget it.
So it's like, it's just crazy. And it just shows that they really don't care about women with differing viewpoints when it comes like when the rubber hits the road, when you're actually making an impact. And this is whatever side you're on. When you're making an impact, people are going to come after you, you know? So it will be interesting to see what she does. I don't know. Honestly, if I were, I don't know that I would run again, because it's going to be, it's going to be hell, you know? So who knows?
Wow. Both of us are cat people, and you have 3 cats. How did you become a cat person? And I got to see Twig a little bit tonight.
Yes.
What are the 3 of them like? What are their names? And
Yeah, I've always been a cat lady. I grew up with cats, and like I travel a lot, so cats are so easy to just take care of, and they mostly do their own thing. I have 3 cats, Twig, which is a little kitten who's insane, Booty or Puff, she goes by both names, or Potato, um, is my Manx cat, who's like the middle cat, who's very sweet and very fat and very cute. And then I have Flo, who's like my original, who's amazing, but she's very sick. So
oh,
yeah,
yeah, I'm sorry to hear that.
it happens, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I know my cat, she overall she's pretty healthy, but there have been times where, she's been having seizures of late, and we
Oh,
have her on some medication
yeah. Mm.
for that, and hopefully she can live for quite some time. Yeah, you say you have your own business, Flow Communications.
Mhm.
What's that like? What do you focus on? What kind of projects you got in the works?
Yeah, totally. So, I have a social media PR and marketing firm, and typically, I mean, we have like a very wide range of clients. I work with a lot of like nonprofits in like the conservative liberty space, some like more like political influencers. I'm working on a movie right now, which is pretty cool. Just and also podcasts. I do a lot with podcasts for nonprofits and political organizations. So it's been great. You know, I'm very thankful for the clients that trust me with their stuff. And I think we do a pretty damn good job. So
What's the movie about?
I'm actually working on the Hunter Biden movie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's very fun. It's very crazy.
Wow,
So that
tell me
will,
more about it.
yeah, that will come out this month. No, sorry, not this month, this year. And yeah, I mean, Lawrence Fox is in it, Gina Carano. It's it's like a dramatized movie, so it's not a documentary. We shot in Serbia this past, was it fall? Yeah, this past fall, and it's a hoot. Robert Davi is directing it, who was in Goonies and a lot of he was the Bond villain.
Yes.
Yeah, he's great. So it's a scream. It's obviously it's like a very dark film because his story is dark, but it's also satirical in a way. Like there's a lot of very dark comedy in it. So yeah.
Yeah, well, what's your role in that movie?
Yeah, so I do marketing and PR.
Oh, wow, that's great.
Yeah.
And you have the site that's starting to take off, Beep Satire.
Yeah.
How did that come about, and what are some of your best headlines and outrageous stories associated with it?
Totally. So I started Beep, like I had made this graphic as a joke and I like tweeted it out and it went bananas. And then I was like, there's something going on here. And so I like put another one out and it also went bananas. And then I was like, you know what? I should just do this. And it really started taking off. I mean, we've got 30,000 followers on Instagram, 50,000 likes on Facebook. You know, our Twitter is like a little bit slower growing, but it's still great. And we've only been live for about a month and we get 30,000 to 50,000 page views basically a week. So it's been great. What are our best headlines? It's always funny because things that like I think are going to do well end up doing the poorest, and things that I think are going to do poorly end up doing really well. The one that I think probably went the most viral for us was of probably a few weeks ago, and it was Whoopi Goldberg after public outcry, Whoopi Goldberg changes her last name from Goldberg to Cohen, and it went bananas. And then there was that one probably went the most viral. My favorite one was a little bit niche, which was Super Nanny en route to the Biden White House, and it's got like a picture of like Hunter Biden like all cracked out. If you remember Super Nanny. I just think that she's funny. So
any other headlines in the works?
Always we put out 2 to 3 a day, so there's always new stuff coming out.
Wow, that's so exciting. I heard that y'all got kicked off of TikTok.
Yeah, that was
very
up
with
annoying. We were like gaining really good traction on TikTok. Like we'd only been on there for like less than a month, and we were like basically at 10,000 followers, and our videos were getting like 20, 30,000, 40,000 views. And they just kicked us off with like basically no warning. They gave us like one warning on just a funny video that we posted of Alex Jones, who like has this like video where he calls Hillary Clinton a demon, and it's just funny. You know what I mean? It wasn't like we were like saying like Hillary Clinton is a demon. It's just funny because he gets so worked up and he's like, Hillary Clinton is a goddamn demon. And it's just hilarious. And so they flagged that, but then it was like, this is your like one warning. And then they just kill the account like 2 weeks later. So I reached out to TikTok PR and I never heard back. I don't think that I'm going to get the account back, unfortunately. But I might make a new one. I don't really know. I'm not super bullish on TikTok. I honestly think you can reach the same amount of people on Instagram. So we'll see.
Wow. And I heard y'all got fact checked for things involving the press secretary, Jen Psaki. Like you actually had people fact check you. What was up with that?
It's funny, and like almost any time we cover Jen Psaki, we get fact checked by like USA Today and Reuters, right? I mean, these are allegedly serious people who are fact checking us. And I think the most recent one, or
didn't you say going to Taco Bell for Thanksgiving dinner?
Yeah.
Because of inflation. I think you put something out about that.
Yes. So it's like, obviously this is a joke. Everything that we put out is clearly labeled satire. We are the only satirical outlet in America that labels things as satire. The Babylon Bee doesn't label things as satire. Hard Times, Reductress, none of these guys do. We put satire on the actual image that goes out. And they still feel the need to fact check it. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's almost tragic comic, really.
It is. It totally is.
Wow. And to finish up, what other fun stuff do you have going on personally, professionally, and travel wise, in the weeks and months ahead?
Well, I guess travel wise, I am going to New York probably at the end of this month for the first time since COVID, which should be interesting. I haven't seen.
Wow.
I used to live in New York, obviously, but it should be interesting. I haven't been back since COVID. Professionally, just trying to grow Beep as quickly as possible, and got some primary campaigns that we're working on. So at Flow, so just a lot.
Wow. Good stuff.
A lot. Oh, I guess I should say this too. And we're starting a podcast for Beep, which will be fun. I have the first taping for that next week, and it's going to be a scream. So.
Oh, wow. Is it just going to be you and a few of your friends who work on it?
It's going to be me to start. And then I have a friend who's a comedian who might co-host it with me. But to start, it's just me. And we've got, let's just say the first guest is very, very interesting and entertaining, and it's going to be wild.
Stay tuned. Wow, I can't wait to listen. What's the name of the podcast?
It's probably it's just going to be probably the Beep News podcast.
Yeah, wow. Can't wait to give that a listen. Thank you so much for coming on the Jimmy Daytona show. As I get started with my podcasting career, it was really good to hear your insights on politics, travel, culture, comedy, satire and much, much more. I'm very excited about your future, and I hope my listeners check your endeavors out, because I'm impressed and I'm sure they will be too. And
Thank you. Well, it was
good to
great
see much of
join.
Twig too tonight too.
Thank you for being patient.
Hey, you're welcome.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Yvonne.
No problem. Take care.
Have a good night.
You too.